And we are live. Okay. Turn this off. Oh, there we go. The sound is Substack. Okay. Gonna give it a moment. Let's see if this the alert or the live stream notification went out to the Discord. We shall see. Okay, that's complete. Thank you. We'll see in a moment, won't we? Okay. Yep. All right. So that's set. Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Storyteller's Corner. I'm your host, Joshua T. Calkins-Treworgy, also known as Byron Sidious. Been a lot of chatter over the last, 24 hours regarding Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch 2, the cost of games, the expected entry price point for getting up and started and rolling if you intend to get Nintendo's next system and the Mario Kart World game and what have you, World Tour, whatever it's called. I didn't memorize it. But a lot of it comes back around to this discussion regarding the general cost of games. And a lot of people have had plenty to say on X regarding the whole thing, one way or the other. A lot of folks saying if you're older and you remember paying an exorbitant amount of money for games on the PlayStation or the Super Nintendo or the N64 back in the day, well, I don't want to hear it because your money no longer has the same buying power that it once did. And that's a fair enough point to make for some folks, I suppose, based on perspectives and, comparison shopping, as it were. And I made a video a little while ago on my YouTube, just a brief little 3.5 minute video responding to Madame Savvy on X, who posed the question, why does it seem so different now? When we were kids, we used to be perfectly fine with stocking up, stashing away, close to $100 to pay for and buy one of these games, as opposed to now we kind of grumble about, $70 and more on a price tag for a video game. And I said then that it's a matter of perspective. When we were younger, when we were kids and we didn't have obligations, we didn't have responsibilities, we didn't have rent or a mortgage or a cell phone bill, we didn't have taxes to pay, property taxes, we didn't have to pay for things like a new hot water tank if you own a home. If you don't own a home, then you have the possible rent hikes that are constant year to year every time you go to renew your lease. Paying for car insurance, paying for health insurance through your employers, making sure that you have full-time hours. There's a lot of different variables and factors that go into being an adult and being a contributing member of a society in which you live. Video games are, much as I love them, and I do love them, I've been playing video games since the Atari 2600. I've always had some kind of video game system to play. The last couple of years, I've been mostly indulging in retro gaming. And over the course of the last couple of months, I have really been diving back into it, thanks to my handy dandy Anbernic 35GXXH. 35XXH. This is it's a retro handheld unit utilizing RetroArch. Just on my favorites folder, I've got close to 30 or 40 different games listed in here, only several of which I'm playing at any one given time. I've been spamming out quite a lot to Gauntlet Legends. Let me pull that up here, actually. Takes a moment to load. Operating off of the system. Okay. Load my current game. Okay. See? Gauntlet Legends. Okay. Simple, straightforward, fun. Basically what I want and or need out of a retro game. And quickly close content and wrap up, be done with it. And it's exiting once again. Pick up and play availability, thanks to just how swiftly it operates, which is a nice little feature. Let's see if we can find, does it have Bubble Bobble? Can't remember if I've got Bubble Bobble on here, or if that's more of a Game Boy. No, it doesn't appear to have Bubble Bobble. Then you've got Castlevania Adventure, Legends, Shoplifter games, ton of different emulated systems on here. And I know that different video game companies are rather sore about the idea of emulation. They don't care for it, but this thing is a nice little powerhouse. It can even handle up to PSP and PlayStation 1. Now, it's not like a Steam Deck. It can't handle, the absolutely high-powered emulated systems. My point being, I spent $80 to get this little device. I didn't muck about with it. I didn't drop any custom firmware or customized software or operating system to run it. I'm just using it with what it came with, and I've loaded some ROMs onto the card. Handles everything that I want to play or that I never had a chance at playing because I didn't own a Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, as most of the world called it back in the day. My parents, didn't have all the money in the world in order to be able to afford to buy my brothers and I every game that we wanted. So this is my opportunity to go back and play a whole lot of RPGs or adventure games, action games even, that I never had a chance at. I've got 4 kids here at home. One of them is visiting her cousins for a couple of days here on spring break. My littlest one is down for her daily nap right now. The younger boy, my younger son, is at daycare. My oldest son is downstairs right now playing Dynasty Warriors 4 on the original Xbox. Hold up there. We'll take a quick look. Take a quick peek, see how he's doing.
I'm not coming. My heart's right there.
Are you winning, son? He's enjoying it. Whoop. Tilt the lever. There we go. Fairly simple gameplay. It's a hack and slash, not a whole lot to it. But he's enjoying the hell out of that. I've had him playing another little retro game stick that I've got plugged right into the back of that television downstairs in the family or in the playroom. Now look, I understand. I am fortunate in that my wife and we're kind of on the bottom end of true middle class, which is a rapidly vanishing socioeconomic status for any family in the United States. But we do well enough that with budgeting and being careful with our money and what we spend our money on, we get by okay. And I'm able to every now and again set aside in order to afford these nice little trinkets and gizmos and games and toys and whatnot for my kids. Can't get them a lot of what they want or frequently, but it's a matter of delayed gratification and making certain that I can set aside for them. For my own enjoyment in as leisure time activities or pastimes, if you're familiar with me, you know that I'm more of a bookish sort and that I enjoy having my genre fiction to read. The most expensive thing that I have here on my table with my little props here for this live stream / video is this $80 device. But about a month ago, I had decided that I wanted to get a little bit more of my Alan Dean Foster collection closer to being complete. The man published a lot of work. But I went to Half Price Books over in Apple Valley, and I was able to track down and find all 3 books in the first Spellsinger trilogy in trade paperback. Had to go through their shelves and their fantasy and sci-fi section for a good 15, 20 minutes crawling through because they didn't have them all set next to each other, unfortunately. But I found all 3 in the first Spellsinger trilogy. Total cost around $13-14 to get all 3 of these paperback novels to make certain I've got the entire trilogy. I have not read them yet. My to-be read list is rather lengthy, but that's okay. I will eventually get around to it. I don't mind reading on my Kindle or my tablet. I don't mind ebooks, but I do prefer to have an actual physical book in hand because I know that it can't just vanish. It can't just be yanked out from under my feet. I paid the price for these books. They are in my physical possession. Short of something happening, like one of the dogs getting a hold of them, one of the kids getting a hold of them to destroy them, or God forbid, some kind of catastrophe in my home, nothing's going to take these away from me as long as I keep them in a safe place. $13-14, plenty of hours of reading material here. And I understand there are plenty of folks who are fans of video games who are going to be like, yeah, but there's no interactivity. You are a passive passenger along for the ride when it comes to reading as a pastime or a leisure indulgence. You are correct, sir and or madam. It is not the same thing. However, it doesn't have to be. I don't have to be an active participant in my entertainment in order to yield something from it, in order to gain something from it. Genre fiction is oftentimes kind of cast aside as fluff, as meaningless, mindless entertainment. And some of it can be, sure. But if you actually bring to bear any narrative analytical tool set in mind, you can find meaning. You can take away entertainment or enjoyment that is of a deeper level of comprehension and sophistication if you're willing to put in the little bit of extra mental work required. Now, these are not as expensive as one of my other rekindled pastimes or hobbies. Recently, just up the road from me, a place opened up about a month and a half ago called Storyark. It's a comic book and collectibles shop, an actual brick and mortar comic book shop. Now, I haven't indulged in comic books in a long time, since I was in my early 20s, back during my first marriage. And during the divorce, I kind of left behind a lot of my old comics. But I have always enjoyed the art form as a narrative mechanism and delivery system. So I'm getting back into comics slowly but surely. Started purchasing this series called Oblivion Song, which is apparently all complete. This is volume 2 or chapter 2. I'm purchasing them in the sort of one story arc at a time trade collections. I've got up to chapter 3. I haven't finished. I just started reading chapter 2 yesterday. I don't have a whole lot of time to devote to things like this. It's also why this is not going to be a very long stream because, my son is, yes, he's enjoying playing his video game, but that's only going to hold his attention for so long. And I have the time. He's on spring break too. I'd like to spend some of that time just palling around with him. I got to chapter 2 and chapter 3 here. These were not cheap. Chapter 2 here cost me $15. Chapter 3 here cost me $17 at Storyark. But I bought them a couple of weeks apart so that I'm not spurging out money that I don't have available in order to indulge in this pastime. You have to choose your cost. Now, I understand no one's going to want to hear this, or at least not many people are going to want to hear this, but you are ultimately responsible for the money you choose to spend on leisure activities and gadgetry and games. Your leisure pastimes, the cost is up to you in what you're willing to pay. And this is a very important lesson for the folks at Nintendo. And I doubt they're going to take the lesson well. But if enough people say, hey, I don't want to pay an ongoing subscription in order to get access to online play and to get access to a library of games, because this is talking about the whole GameCube library of games that are going to be available only on Switch 2, even though the Switch 1 could easily have handled those games. Why should we, as gamers, pay you the subscription fee to access your network and then pay an additional fee to access those game files on your server that needs to be maintained and that you can cut access off to at any point you so choose, with or without notice, with or without cause? We know that that's how that operates because we've been analyzing terms of service agreements for a few years now and have come to understand, oh, you want to screw us as much as humanly possible. That's why you've come away from physical media. This goes hand in hand with the whole WEF nonsense of you will own nothing and you will be happy. No, fuck you. If I pay for the product, I am going to be the owner of that product. Part of the reason why I may enjoy digital books and electronic books, but I still prefer to have the physical format is because, as I said, you can't just snatch this away from me. I paid for it. It's in my home. I have it. Same with comic books.
Daddy,
This can't just be.
I feed a boss it. I feed a boss.
Be right back. Gotta help him level up.
I feed a boss.
Boss? Awesome. Alright, let's see how you distribution of points. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Whoa! You wiped out everybody. Nice job, bud. Wow. 6 feet. There you go. Oh. Your sword ranked up. Nice. Okay, Oliver's got some good points. Game. Now, are you ready to try story mode?
Yeah.
Okay.
Story.
Game. All right. Move, way,
Play.
okay. You want to use a pal again, or do you want to use yourself?
I don't want to use a big guy.
Well, the way officers have Joshua T. He's really going big. The cow is kind of tall. You haven't used the cow. All right, if you're sure.
I think it's
There you go.
wrong.
It's a different guy, but you can try.
I have one question.
What?
Just want to sit down
No,
here.
I'm going to finish up on the Give me 1 second. I'm way off. Jesus. You go out? You go out? Alright, hold up. Hold up. Go potty. Dippy dog. That's alright. Me in the arm.
Dad,
Yeah!
look at here.
Hold on, bud. Bring these downstairs with me. What's up, buddy?
Look,
Yeah, it's a storyboard.
but I don't know. Let's read it.
You just skip it.
Step. Step.
Yeah, now no, you can't skip. You gotta click the A.
This one?
Yeah. You gotta move on
No.
to the next area.
When I beat these two.
Yes, but now it's in story mode. It's not free play mode. So, where was I? Sorry, lost track. It's not something that Nintendo is going to assume, because they have had a lengthy history of being able to get people to pay a premium price for what ultimately is not anything that can't be done by another company. But Ryan Roger Athey, reality based, who I much enjoy, has put it thusly, that Nintendo is a fortress. They're a walled garden. Their approach to games has, for a very long time, effectively been that, okay, that is loud, buddy. I'm going to take this back upstairs. Their approach has been, we are going to mostly rely on first-party, in-house games, intellectual properties that are highly successful, highly popular, that continue to sell well and perform well and be critically appreciated and praised with each new iteration, each new version, regardless of cost, regardless of system sophistication and capability. It's always going to sell. It's always going to have a market. It's always going to have an audience. And they have not been wrong yet on many of those scores. Mario has been around forever and will always have an audience and a base of support amongst the gaming consuming public. Much the same for The Legend of Zelda. Link always had fans, always had players and supporters. Each new iteration bringing a variety of new enemies, new puzzles, new dungeons, but the story doesn't change very much. Yet the gameplay loop remains just similar and recognizable enough to previous iterations that people can, for the most part, pick up and get going again. Same for Pokemon, which is actually, Nintendo, if I remember correctly, they partner with the Game Freak, or that might be in-house. Point being, Pokemon only shows up on Nintendo hardware. The formula hasn't changed much over the years, since I was a kid playing Pokemon Red and Blue. You'll travel around, fight and capture these little monsters in Pokeballs, and level them up, evolve them, what have you. The point is, when they do make changes, they are small incremental changes predicated upon what worked previously with a couple of small changes to say, hey, here's something kind of new to the formula. They've found great success with Mario Kart in this way, the various Mario platformer games. Like I said, The Legend of Zelda has operated much the same way. Metroid, they changed things up with Metroid Prime. Big time change to jump from 2D side scrolling into the first person perspective, three dimensional shooter genre type. I'll grant that that was a big change to the formula. And they took a hell of a gamble on that, but it worked in their favor. It worked out for them. But then you look at something like Star Fox Adventures and go, oh, well, changing the formula too drastically can result in an absolute turd. They have learned some harsh lessons over the years regarding trying to change things up too much in one shot. So there is a part of me that understands some of their trepidation when it comes to changing up the formula too much. But even Star Fox Adventures, as terrible as that game was, a lot of people purchased it based upon the history of success and quality of Nintendo's first-party library. But people, as I mentioned before, people aren't going to want to constantly be paying for subscription access to games that they can have yanked out from under them at any given time. People have gotten really sick and tired of the abusive nature of the relationship between game developers slash publisher and producers versus the audience who is paying for the leisure of playing these games. And these video game companies don't seem to understand that what they have on their hands is a product that is a leisure product. It's not necessary. Nobody requires a video game in order to go about their day-to-day lives. We don't need social media. We don't need Netflix. We don't need streaming services. Except all those physical, tangible versions of our entertainment are slowly but surely being phased out. Well, it costs too much to publish or print a disc. It costs too much to put it into the case. The cases cost too much. The plastic costs too much. The distribution costs too much. Okay, but you've been passing on the costs of those things to the customers since time out of mind anyway. What's changed? And why now, if you've reduced all those costs, are you still asking for $80 or $90 for a digital version of a video game that you can yank out from under somebody's hands, and you didn't have to pay for the plastic packaging? You didn't have to pay for the shipping and receiving. You didn't have to pay for the distribution into brick and mortar stores. Those costs are gone, but you're still asking for top tier dollar for the game itself. Okay, I understand you have to pay out the salaries on the developers and programmers. Okay, you have to pay for the advertising and marketing. Again, understandable, except there's a free ecosystem of word of mouth on things like Rumble and YouTube and X and Twitch and Instagram and whatever, pick your social media of choice. Word of mouth gets out there, and you hardly have to pay a dime in order to get people talking about your product. So the advertising and marketing cost cannot be that exorbitant. So what are you paying these programmers and developers? That's really none of our business, I suppose. But the question is there. What are we paying for? And what are we getting in return? Now, when I went to Half Price Books, I bought that Spellsinger trilogy of paperbacks. I know damned well how Half Price Books operates. They get donations. Books get brought into them oftentimes by people who no longer have room in their homes to continue buying physical books. That's a challenge. I'm willing to accept that, but that can be challenging. If you want to collect books, you need some place to, store them, and you can run out of finite space. I get it. And so people will either trade them in for credit so they can get more books but fewer of them, because that's how, secondary market retailers operate. They give you less credit or financial value for your traded in products in exchange for giving you the opportunity to grab something else off their shelves. But then they can turn around and sell those books or games or movies and DVDs, Blu-rays, what have you, at a markup based on the credit they give customer X, Y, or Z to sell it to customer A, B, or C. This is simple economics. I'm not enough of an idiot to not understand that. The $14 I spent for those 3 books, I imagine if they were donated, it didn't cost half price books anything other than a little bit of physical shelving space in their store, and maybe $1.50 in hourly wage to pay one of their clerks to put the books on the shelf. Okay, that's a cost, but once it's there, it's done. And then I come along and I pick those books up quite happily, because if I were to purchase those brand new right now off of some place like eBay, well, those books are not so easy to find all the time. And I could end up paying 20, 25, 30 bucks. Or if I purchase them brand new paperback, $10 a pop, it's 30 bucks. I paid less than half. I get a great value out of it. But then I own the book. It's physically, tangibly mine. For a long time, GameStop, much as I despise them, were able to operate profitably off of the secondhand or resale market model of video games. Well, publishers and developers got a little miffed about this because people, instead of buying their brand new games when they first dropped, they were going to places like GameStop and they were purchasing pre-owned games. Now, the store is able to operate at a profit by reselling these older titles on behalf of people who they couldn't sell it themselves, or they didn't have the time or the attention to put into trying to sell it themselves, so they brought it into GameStop and traded it in for credit. Similar system to half-price books. Hey, nobody I know wants to buy this off of me. I'm going to trade it in here along with a couple of other titles to get enough credit to get a new game off, well, new to me at least, to the player. Here you go. Here's these older games that I no longer play and I'm no longer interested in playing. Can I now have some credit so that I can get a different game that I haven't played yet? Okay, cool. GameStop then turns around, marks those pre-owned games to the roof and back in order to try and recuperate a profit, because they are trying to make off of those pre-owned games enough profit to not only pay for or make up for the game that's going out the door in store credit, but to also pay the staff and to pay for the overhead on the physical location. I get that. I don't always like how they do it. Very few of us do. But at least that was an option when the games were on a physical, tangible medium. When they were on a disc or on a cartridge that we could physically hold on to, put into our system, turn on the system, and play without having to have constant online access between our system and the internet. It's another facet of this whole you will own nothing and you will be happy. Most games, you can't just pop the disc or the cartridge into your system and turn it on and go. It has to connect for day one patches. It has to connect for launch day patches and updates and downloads and advertisements. Dear God, before you can even access the material that you have paid good money for, you have to put up with waiting for the damn thing to load onto your device, put up with an advertisement, put up with a bunch of flashing little gizmos telling you, hey, you've got this game. Well, here's the downloadable content, and here's an extra feature pack, and here's an extra widget that will enhance your gameplay experience. Well, why wasn't that in the game as sent to the stores in the first fucking place? You're constantly asking us to pay more and to download more and to store more or access the cloud and pay for access to the cloud for something we've already paid for. When I buy a book, the whole thing is in the book. Done. The story is there. The characters are present. It doesn't go to publication or production until it's done. I don't then have to pay for 3 or 4 extra pages of script. The author, the storyteller, is expected to have the whole damned thing ready for their audience. Period. Now, again, I understand because it's a different medium. It's a passive medium. So the expectation is a little bit different. You're not going to have the same audience. Again, I get that. But to the folks at Nintendo, let me ask you. Do you really think that everyone is going to climb on board and continue paying these higher prices for access to material that in the long run they aren't going to own? Why do you suppose it is that emulation continues to be a threat? Why do you suppose it is that people continue to try to figure out workarounds in order to gain access to the materials that you have long since abandoned? It's because people still want to have options. People still want to play those older titles. And it would be really nice if they could do so without you standing in the way, charging them a toll every time they want to get that older title that they already paid for. The planned obsolescence on these things is also a matter that drives people crazy, and understandably so. Why am I going to pay for a game that I know in a couple of years might not be accessible anymore? Why bother? It's the same problem that the folks with the sports franchises like FIFA or Madden run into every year. Yes, people want to have access to the latest and greatest features in online play, so they suck it up and they end up paying annually for a new version of the same crap. But we're not all whales like that. And every passing year, there are fewer and fewer whales for you to count on. Why? Because people, generally speaking, and I love this line from Men in Black, individuals can be highly intelligent. People as a mass are stupid, blind, panicky creatures and idiots. But eventually, even the herd starts to notice there's a problem here. We're not benefiting from this at all, individually or on the whole, as a group. We're getting suckered. We're getting played. We're getting screwed. I am willing to admit that my perspective on this is biased. And it's biased in large part because my wife and I do own our home. Josh, what the hell does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Hear me out. Anything goes wrong in this house, as happened just a couple weeks ago with our hot water tank. It was 12 years old. It finally kicked the bucket. It blew out. All right, you're going to have to reset and start over, bud. Hold up, buddy. I'll get you squared up. Sorry about the shaky cam there, folks. Just a tick, buddy boy. You're coming with me. Hooray. Not exactly. All right.
I died that I turned and I died a bad guy and I died.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. You want to try it again?
Yep.
Okay.
But this time I picked a different team.
You want to say hi? Okay. Game. All right. Which team? You don't want to do way again, so you want to do woo or shoe. The shoe's got the big guy that you like using.
I'm gonna lose this guy.
Okay.
I don't know.
Liu Bei? You haven't used him. You've been using Zhang Fei.
No, but I
He's the
don't.
big guy.
But I don't know this guy.
Do you want to try him in free mode first?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try free mode with him first.
I will pick a different team.
Okay. You want to do the Fortress, the Rebellion, or the Menace? Because the Menace you keep dying at, so if you want to try the Rebellion or the Fortress.
Fortress.
Fortress, okay. Fortress one you seem to be pretty good with. You've gone through that like twice now. All right. So you've got Zhang Fei.
And that one I don't know.
Liu Bei. You want to try him?
I don't know his powers look like.
Well, looks like he uses a longsword, which you've used a longsword for your Dennis character.
Dennis character, yeah.
So, put on the lightning orb. You want the life, defense.
Life.
Life, okay. And you want defense or offense?
Offense.
Attack or defend? Defend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because defending I
which bodyguards do you want? Do you want these guys or do you want the girls?
Girls. Because I like
All three?
Yep.
Okay.
All three.
All
Because
right.
all three, that's like.
You're all set.
But you want to have is 10 plus 10?
Yeah, that works.
My 3 girls. And wait, my 3 girls.
Yes, you have 3 bodyguards with you.
And 3 girls.
Now, again, on the subject of video games, when my father-in-law moved in with us about 6-7 months back, he brought with him his original Xbox. He's had this thing for a long time, and he brought up a handful of games. I went and found a copy of Dynasty Warriors 4 on eBay for like $6, and I grabbed it because it's just simple, mindless hack and slash fun.
Dad,
Yeah.
Why too many rides? 1, 2, 2.
Sorry about that. What was I getting at? Sorry. Hard to keep myself focused per se. Again, my apologies. But there are other options other than continuing to pay for constant access to these games for which we're not always going to have access. It becomes an exercise in futility to try and keep up. For me, I've got kids, I've got a full-time job, I've got the house to take care of, I've got my writing that I tend to. I read a lot. So my time and budget for video games, for leisure things like games, is fairly minimal. So I'm going to spend minimally upon it. Now, what I was saying before about the hot water tank and my bias as a homeowner, anything goes wrong in this house, anything gets disrupted or falls apart or breaks, my wife and I have to pay to replace it or fix it. We have to have money set aside in our personal finances and our budget to attend to those things which are vital to our continued function as a family and as a home. It's a lot more important to me than setting aside money for Nintendo's newest Goo-Gaw. You might think, okay, well, how much did the hot water tank set you back? Close to $1,900. That's a lot of money for middle-class folks like my wife and I. I was able to pay for a good chunk of it up front because I had been setting aside money for repairs and things needed around the house. Well, then how are you ever going to afford something like the Switch 2? Simple, I'm not. You have to choose your costs. But I've rambled kind of aimlessly long enough. I think my wife just got home. So I am going to hop off for now, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves. And as always, keep reading.